Buddha, grandfather, Adawi, my grandmother here, who could go up into the clouds like that and see those skirts.
Yeah.
Grandfather Rolling Thunder, do you remember him?
Of course.
Yeah? Yeah, anybody here met him? Yeah, he
Yeah.
could do that.
Yeah.
He could go up there and make communication.
But, I mentioned this before, but I was in Italy when there was this amazing lightning storm, and you had said to me it was the fifth dimension coming through.
Yes.
Because I was sitting in this place in
We're in
Tuscany.
Italy.
I
In
was
Tuscany?
in Tuscany.
That's where we were. We got caught there for days.
And there was this, we were in this little house on the side of a mountain. And it was night, and I heard this sound. It sounded like a whole bunch of great big trains were like coming over the mountain. And I started hearing this like a roaring sound. And so I got up and I'm looking around, and of course, one of my daughters did wake up. My younger daughter woke up. The other ones are really sleeping. So I'm hearing this roaring sound, and then the next thing that happened is like something came over the mountain, and there was this continual flashing. It was just like strobes, like and it just flashed and flashed and flashed and flashed, and there was a roaring and a flashing sound. All the hairs on your body are standing on end. It went on, and then we watched it. It went right down the valley, and then another storm came over, and that storm had lightning streaks, but still no rain. And then the final storm was like a big, thunder booming and rain and all that. And the next day I said to the man, because my daughter said, well, what was that? I said, well, maybe that's an Italian thunderstorm, and maybe they have different ones here. And he said that he'd never seen anything like it, and he said those lightning storms in the past had only rarely been recorded over ocean water. And the same thing, something similar to that happened when Carrie and I we were in Africa, and over the Ngorongoro crater. At night, she called me because again there was this flash. No, at that time it didn't have sound; it was just continual flashing. And I said to one of the people who worked at the hotel on the edge of the crater, I said, "Is this like normal?" She said, "I never saw anything like that before." So I don't know if those are sprites or whatever, but it was just like strobe lights.
Those are actually, we hear it spoken of by many people that we're vibrating into a new frequency. We're expanding into another dimension. We describe it as into another world. And so the movement of the electrons, atoms, everything, and even the pitch of the electrons in their outer orbits change. And so those moments when there is that extraordinary lightning, that's the thinning of the veil and the meeting of the two membranes, so that the fifth dimension is directly accessible to people in the third and fourth dimension. It's really an extraordinary phenomenon. We've had a few such things here in the valley.
We're supposed to have a severe thunderstorm tonight.
These are not really thunderstorms, so we'll see what happens tonight.
Flash. It didn't rain.
Yes.
Yeah, the one that I think, Don, you were there too. You heard that one, the roaring and the flashing and the.
Were you in Tuscany with me?
No, I was there with my family.
Oh, okay.
We happened to both be there at the same time when that strange storm happened.
Oh, yes. Well, then when returning, I was coming through, I had to stay in Rome for 2 or 3 days. I couldn't get out. And then I came to Philadelphia. The same storm was there. And I had to spend the night in Philadelphia. It was extraordinary. And I said, oh, these are moving dimensions. And new information coming. So here's one that still moves. We'll edit this, won't we? Because the chit-chat keeps the real comments that are helpful, and my chit-chat you can remove.
question going back to yesterday, where you were talking about the giving and the receiving energy in the heart, and how if someone, say, a thought of upset arises in anger, it creates that whirlpool where it doesn't move out of the system because you're holding on to it. And I wondered if you could just speak a little bit more about that, because I work with so many people who are caught in that whirlpool.
Well, I'm looking at the issue of emotions from a perspective of emotion as energy and also as vibration and sound. And so emotion as energy wants to move, wants to be resolved, and there's a trick to it. It seeks to sustain itself by repeating, like, oh, I think I'm happy when I'm yelling at you. I think we're really relating when we're yelling at each other. That's an example of a neurotic emotion that is a pattern that on a physiological level changes your brain chemistry, so you don't feel comfortable unless you're arguing. And it also changes your energy pathways in your body, and your immune system is impacted. And what I'm reminded of by remembering George Merkel's work is that it also changes your cell wall permeability. Basically, certain emotions, when people say they're stuck, they are. They're stuck because the emotion has adhesive qualities that draws more such repetition. So in that way, we can see the aggregates that arise of personality and how such aggregates give rise to suffering and rebirth. So here we come back to, so someone feels they're caught in a particular emotion. So you address the emotion as energy, and you allow that energy to be reintegrated into the system. Some people say by analyzing and talking about it, I've noticed for most people that just makes it more. Yeah. So you go to the place of no comment, where you apply vibration and replacement. So in Buddhism, we speak of replacing the thought with the ideal we wish to actualize. And so, and I think it's used now as a psychological tool. When someone tells you, oh, I hate my mother. Well, how would you like to feel about her? What would be comfortable for you? How would you like your relationship to be? So you're changing the attention from I like, I dislike, I hate, I love, to the, well, what's the ideal that you aspire to? So you listen to certain stages in people's lives, say like in the 20s. My parents did this, they did that, they didn't understand me, blah, blah, blah. At least in the past. Interestingly enough, the people in the 20s today, they don't have that baggage.
Yeah.
They don't have it. They somehow recognize they're empowered to, hey, well, whatever happens, I'm here. And they don't accept or even buy into the idea you can guilt trip them if you wanted to. And they won't let you guilt trip yourself if you wanted to. So there's something that came out of the unwinding of people's neuroses that left a pattern of more awake behavior for the next generation. And it's sometimes just a difference of 20 years where you see that change in consciousness made. Okay, just remember, in your life, those of you who are 40 or older, what were your conversations in college? And that is not happening these days. So when someone feels stuck, you invite them to consider what is the ideal, what is it you wish, and that you're here now, you're present, and whatever you have experienced as suffering has actually brought you here in this moment. So what's the gem that you gather from those experiences?
And what about if someone feels unworthy? If so many people feel unworthy, would it be, well, is it true? Or
if you have a human body, you and the universe recognize you're worthy. If you have a human body and a mind, you're worthy. So the fact that you pose the question means worthiness is already there, and it is not determined by people outside of us. Worthiness is, oh, thinking, learning. Oh, but why did they leave me? Did I do something, as most children experience in death or loss of parents through whatever means? Kids will think, what did I do? They didn't love me, they left me. And you consider, what did they give me? So when feeling that, did they really leave? No, because they're within. And whatever messages they have to give me, they are also within me. So one begins to change the view, change the perspective. And to me, the best analogy, and this is probably my housewife tendency, that the best analogy is about dust bunnies under the bed. Because so there's the dust of, oh, I'm not good enough. And basically you heard it from a teacher, somebody outside, you're not doing it good enough. And some people actually thought that that was a way to develop excellence. It was a teaching method. Now, it's not good enough. And it really harmed people, yet it was accepted through our culture to train people. Nope, it's not good enough, you're not good enough. And it becomes translated to you're not good enough. So when that echo is arising, it is good to look at what one has accomplished, where one has moved.
It's also good to go back and find out where that came in.
Mm-hmm.
And once you do that and let them say those words with emotion, with that emotion from where in the body it's being stored, then the healing part is, I deserve love.
Mm.
So ask, say it again. Say those words again. I'm not good enough. And then have them say it again louder. I'm not good enough. Well, where do you feel that in your body? It's in my heart. Well, say it from your heart. I'm not good enough. It's just a focusing technique, and we're going to keep repeating until it diminishes. And then once it diminishes,
I wouldn't.
Then apply the antidote or the healing thought.
I have the idea that the more you repeat those negative statements, because sound is power, you're augmenting them. To immediately state, I am worthy, I am light, I am love, is the medicine of correction. I know there are different methods. And of course, what works for people is wonderful. I'm looking at the point of sound energy, and so and thought is sound, so the things you repeat over and over again, you're energizing. So see the thought form, recognize where it came from, and speak, I am present. I have the gift of life. I am worthy.
When you say recognize where it came from, I want to be clear, because some people spend 50 years looking for where something came from, and it's not necessary.
It can be dissolved in a flash with the right
Exactly.
frequency.
Yeah. So when you say recognize where it came from, it came from nothing.
Because basically, all emotions and thoughts have no intrinsic substance.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah, this came from the illusion, the conditioned view.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And, you touch the stove, it's hot, you burn yourself.
Yeah.
You understand that. And you learn. And you do not need to belabor the point. And certainly there are lots of techniques that people find that they feel is helpful to them, and there are also techniques that are dealing directly with the relationship of the elements of emotion: fire, water, earth. And so when there is much anger, one can contemplate the flame. And anger wants to become discriminating wisdom. It wants to understand the how. It's an aspect of intelligence. So when you see the anger, imagine it as a flame that is burning away what veils may stand in the way of your choice to understand, or your place of understanding. So, example, I tell the great-grands, hey, Grandma, where are some snacks? There's no sugar here. What kind of, I said, we have apples, we have grapes, we have strawberries. You have sugar to put on them. And there's this is different. And there's this moment of disturbance. Well, yeah, we'll go get us some candy. And then understanding, oh, it does taste good. I don't really need the candy. And Yaya is so happy to be doing nothing. She's not getting up and going anywhere. Yaya's the grandmother, my daughter. So the whole fixation with where's the sugar, where's the candy, and why are you depriving me of this? Why don't you have it here for me? Becomes, oh, it tastes all right. It's okay. So finding those places where we can have discovery. So it is not about your way is right or wrong. Yeah, what's familiar, and certain emotions become familiar. I'm getting like an old woman. I'm just going on and on and on here.
Venerable, if I might just add also, because I had to, as a massage therapist, I had to hone my skills. So I did just take a class. It's a point of view, some centropic body, mind. And what it went into was the idea of the emotions also actually sticking to receptor sites in the cells.
Mm-hmm.
And they're So they are finding the chemistry of that, and like Andy said, just at least to get in touch, they find a lot of healing with people getting in touch with where in the body they're feeling that.
Yes.
That evidently is more cutting edge in that, not necessarily to dictate where it's psychologically, just hammer home, but more to get into the feeling of where you're feeling.
And to release it.
And gratitude was great, which I thought was fabulous. The idea of gratitude for the body or something was helpful. Those, the positive aspecting mitigated, because they were tracking out, like Carolyn Meese and those people, some of them, and who's the one we know that did all those affirmations, that certain, like guilt can move into mutating cells a particular way. Anyway, it's just another aspect, but it was very interesting. It was interesting.
And what's interesting is what happens when it's released in the body.
And I studied some Tibetan medicine too, with the fires, like, and the meridians and that. So we know that, anger, liver, that kind of blood, fire.
Yes. And the resolution.
There's other disciplines that mark out certain disease with organ systems, right?
And at the same time, though, don't you think that with aspiration, intention, willingness, gratitude, that we can connect with and to the higher self? I think of it as the I am presence, and call upon the Adawis, the enlightened ones, the divine perfection that we are, and willingly realign so that we can really transcend having to work it out in form, and that we can have a transcendent alchemical transmutation. And it really just takes our willingness, our belief, our faith. That to me is the thing where, for me, to put my focus is in that mystical healing versus trying to, because it just feels so laborious to me to try and figure out, on a physical level, on a form level.
Yeah, there are certain chambers that people float in. I see the amazing modalities for healing that are expanding and people's understanding. And some of and this is very personal, some things, before my brother died, and we could switch places. And even when he was in Vietnam and they were in trouble, I would literally appear. And all of the guys would ask, who's the naked woman? Because I didn't know how to project with my clothes on at the time. And he says, my sister, we better get out of here. And they say, sure. And then, boom, we're out of here. And one morning I was meditating and I saw him and he says, well, I don't want to stay around much longer. And I said, well, why? Please, we would love you to stay around. He was just turning 33. He said, well, I don't really care to. And he had been dealing with Agent Orange, and he's also a photographer. So he had his dance with the VA about benefits like so many of them did, and he was able to earn a living. And I just said, please wait, because I have to arrange things and see if I can get a ticket. I said I'll be there Friday. And maybe 15 minutes, very quickly, he returned and he said, I can't wait that long. If you're going to come, you need to come. And so I managed to get there. And I recognized, yeah, this is a transit point. It's possible. So I took a photograph of our home here in Vermont because he hadn't been there. He'd just been to our home in Brooklyn. And I took a photograph so I could show it to him as a focal point. And we talked, and I tried to encourage him, stay in your body. And I told him, this is the weirdest thing, when I was driving from the airport, I saw Fosmo in the side mirror, driving a red sports car. Fosmo was his buddy. He was a person from the South, a blonde American, very Southern, but also prep school. And I said, this was really weird, Bruce. I saw Fosmo in the side mirror. And then we both sort of shifted. And he said, well, what did he say? I think he said he was waiting for me. At any rate, I didn't know that Fosmo had crashed his race car on the base, and my brother was the person who collected his body and worked with his autopsy of his own body. So I didn't know that because I still thought Fosmo was alive. So I felt badly after that I had told him I'd seen Fosmo in the side mirror and that he's waiting for you. What is that about? And as if somehow I may have given him permission to leave earlier. And so that was a source of dissonance. At any rate, daughter number 3 had a new apartment, so I went there and stayed with her in it. And I was sitting up on her bed meditating, and I lost consciousness. No anything. No sense, no feeling, no nothing. And it must have been maybe for 20 minutes. And then on the other side, he's all right, and he's saying, hey, remember this, remember that. Remember, do you know we were those people? Do you know we lived in that times, like things we talked about as kids, they were coming back and he could see and would acknowledge this whole stream of time and space. At any rate, I had discomfort that I revealed to him Fosmo was in the side mirror. And it bothered me for a long time. And I basically did something about that emotion, thinking of him, and thinking of his transition. And he'd said since he was a child he didn't want to live past 33. So I began thinking of him and my talking with him, and it was wonderful. At least I was able to get there because within hours after I arrived, he had a massive pulmonary embolism. And it was sadness that maybe if I didn't tell him, he would have decided to stay longer. So at any rate, there is this method of blinking. And Van Dyke was his name. Do you remember him? I think he taught at Dartmouth. He was in our community years ago.
Yeah, something I do remember.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think who it was.
Yeah, at any rate, he showed me this method of blinking really quickly. And that was that really transformed the emotion of,
A little bit like EMDR.
yes.
You know, when you're doing this,
Well, this was different.
Desensitization before that.
Yeah, so it's basically you start blinking.
Right, right.
And that seemed to uh, bring to harmonic resolution the question of perhaps I shouldn't have told him. I mean, it was his time, and it was his choice. And he knew his body, what was happening inside of it. So these therapies really do work. They have indeed great benefit. And so the therapies that work with energy, like moving it in the body or replacing the thought or the sound, uh, sound wave therapy, where someone may sing their joy, sing their thankfulness. This literally changes the pockets of information and allows that energy then to be restored to the whole stream. And I think, many professionals are boxed into uh, the confines of their profession. That, their expectations about how you're supposed to be, how you're supposed to teach, how you're supposed to be. Well, it makes it easy for consistency. So people say, well, I'm going to the shaking hand healer, and the shaking hand healer in most indigenous cultures has had similar training, and you'll get the certain results. So the definition, the defining and placing ourselves in categories makes it easy for communication and for people to find what they need. And also, it can be a hindrance. Like an architect can build something in Dubai that you would not be able to do in North America, just because nobody is confined and confounded about this type of uh, building plan. So healing is a dance, it's continuous, and it's the recognition of how whole we are. And I think it's so simple, the pacifying, the sorrow, the doubt, the uncertainty. What is the conflict really? The inner conflict, it appears to be that of separation from your awakened self. We think it may be separation from our parents or our loved ones, and ultimately, when you keep looking, what is the craving? What is one looking for? Basically, a deep understanding.
So even, I know someone who, when they were young, very formative years, 9 to 14, they were frequently locked in a closet for long periods of time, beaten severely, raped and raped. And now they have post-traumatic stress syndrome and at times feel uncontrollable rage. And they're having a lot of healing through the prayer and master building and things like that. And still, I feel challenged to communicate this simple understanding that it is this belief that somehow that separated you from the awakened state, or that you are less than.
Pain really makes big changes,
Yeah.
and force and harm makes changes in the energy pathway. And so part of the remedy would be when that person is feeling safe enough, a very skillful, deep, like Feldenkrais or other physical work. And sometimes when you're called to assist someone or they come to you for help, it's uh, it's not that someone may think they're recalcitrant. It's difficult.
Right.
And you want to find and you do find the key of love and the field of trust. So the person can, all right, there's one space, there's this space. And you also show person how to make that space, how they are within that space, how to again establish clear, permeable boundaries of right relationship. So it is really tender, because each of you do special, you have special spiritual work you do in the world. You may call it something else, and ultimately it's the root cause is to reveal the resonance of people's unity and integration. So when people have been abused or people have been tortured in war, you can also call upon support systems. So you create a safe rectangle in the office. You have certain scents, like cinnamon, vanilla, to help a person just relax. So that the retuning is not just on the conscious level, it's also on a cellular level. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm listening to this conversation from the mind form, thought form. Torture is a crime of specific intent to shatter human bonds and connections.
Yes.
And survivors chose to stay together through the force of the human ties. And it goes two ways at the same time, which is one way, that is, the ties and connections are to the past or to friends or to the hopes or to the children on a common foundation. So you can look at it individuated and you look deeply in what's shared. But that brought me to the question, the healing for warriors, the healing for those who go to war, to those who kill, to those who do what may be the right thing to do, and still, in a relative sense, pretty ugly. And I was wondering, in the healing of the warriors, whether we're also trying to support and sustain the remembrance of the connections.
Yes, and also to unwrap the pattern of aggression and guilt. So consider the ratcheting pentagon that can become a Taurus ring. So in Native American traditions, the soldier is made new again, purified before returning to the family. Because when they're not, they have ghosts. And their rheostat for determining danger is not recalibrated for living in society. So there's a process in this called making people new. And it's 49 days where some people are taken back to their childhood. Eventually there are a lot of fat old ladies who are hugging them and rocking them. They start with other men first, and then the end point is being held in the arms of matronly women. So that symbolically and even in terms of their responses, they're back to being a child again, made new. And then they're built up again with ceremony and given tasks to do. But in old times, you would not have people come back from war right to the family. There is a time of purification. And so war is family abuse, the human family, and torture is family abuse. So the abuse of the individual, and it's interesting, I've heard from young women of many cultures that are being locked in the closet and being repeatedly raped and abused and really mean action by people who supposedly love. Yeah, family members who, yep, the most loved and the people you're most dependent upon. And how people get through is to acknowledge, hey, you're here. And what enabled you to stay congruent, still thinking, even with all the fear and pain in the closet? So you look to the points of success. And usually people, when they're abused regularly, they develop different layers of consciousness. And so where's the wise being who watched it all, and can you include the wise being in your release of that energy and reintegration of that energy into the field of your consciousness?
I've found some of the most profound healing that I've been honored to be part of and witness is when people who have been really abused and tortured are able to be in their bodies,
Mm-hmm.
Again. And that's the work that Dharma Christ,
Mm-hmm.
It's really beginning with that very basic level of sensing. And I can remember working with one woman who had been abused when she was 5 years old. She had early raped when she was traveling with her father on a business trip. And couldn't tell anybody about it. And her body turned against her, and she started to get to the point where when she was in her, I'd say, 20s, she was a musician, and she was unable to play her instrument anymore. And what was so amazing was that her psychiatrist referred her to me, and she was suicidal. And what was so amazing was that, you know how sometimes something happens that you don't plan, but it turns out to be the most important thing? I had asked her permission if I could record what we were doing so I could better understand the
process that was unfolding. And so in my voice, I was telling her where I was putting my hands on her body.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was telling her, as I was doing it, it was connecting with her brain. And then we were able to bring in higher healing wisdom self to integrate with that. Because she had left her body and was watching, many of these, what we'll do with the perpetrator, And it was very powerful because it's going back to the baby, as you were saying, Marguerite, where I felt as though I was, how babies learn themselves because they're feeling themselves with their touch and their tactile, what we were talking yesterday. And that brought in a missing link. And then she was able to go through her, she was eventually able to come back into her body, and now she's a wonderful musician again and everything. But it was really almost learning to be where her body was, because the perpetrator had her shoulder, her left shoulder was hurting her, and I remember that we got to that. All of a sudden, the whole thing came back in a flashback. And so she had numbed out her body, particularly the center portion of her body, so she couldn't connect with her pelvis, her hips, she just didn't, she wasn't there. So it was very, very powerful how we don't realize that having somebody who has been abused like that to begin to touch themselves and rewire that kinesthetic somatic knowing and loving can be very, very powerful. I don't know if you've done that, but just really, and having them, not you put your hand there, but have them put their hand there. Or, if you have your hand, they put their hand on you or something where they're controlling. But it's like going back to the ABCs of touch.
I wonder about the tortures they're using now with some of the people that are taken back here from Afghanistan, where they put them into a room that's really brightly lit, and they 24/7, week after week, and they play Sesame Street at a very, very loud volume all day long, 24/7, week after week. I don't know how you could deal with that without leaving your body where it exists. It's like you have to leave your body. And I would imagine it would fry your nervous system. Your biorhythms are totally off because it's lit all the time. And it's just horrible. I can't imagine how anyone could even think of that kind of torture. It's just inconceivable.
Well, it's important to imagine because people do. Either we're going to say they're part of who we are, or we're going to say it's too much.
Is part of the Maras, the negative energy of confusion, wanting to hold people back from the realization of their potential.
Human experience, nevertheless.
What?
Humans experience Maras.
Yes, they do. Maras exist. And I would say the most powerful statement I heard about work of reconciliation was a man who had his whole family killed and I think 1 or 2 limbs chopped off. And people asked, how did you survive? And his belief in Christ was what helped him survive. And people said, well, why didn't you get angry? Didn't you hate them? And he said they would have won. If I went to their mind level, then they would have won.
That was the most amazing thing that this woman shared with me. Well, 2 things. She came to believe that she wasn't human, and that's why they treated her that way, was because she wasn't human. If she was human, they would never have treated her that way. And that belief is still very strong in her. And it comes up all the time. Is she human? Is she worth treating well? And she had an experience there in the dark at one point where she was just, physically a wreck. And it welled up in her the choice very, very clearly that she could become like the ones who were hurting her, her father and her uncle. Her mother knew what was going on. Everybody knew what was going on. No one tried to prevent it. And or she could choose not to become like that. She could be true to herself. And she said there was like this old, withered, ugly man that appeared with her in the darkness. And when she said, no, I won't do that, I won't choose that. Maybe she was 12, 13 years old when she made that decision. She said the old man kind of like withered and went away like that. And my immediate perception was that this was a karmic event where she was having an opportunity to heal some karmic thing, and by making that choice, she released that karma that had showed up like that old man. And when she told me that story, she said it was just the most amazing thing that this man appeared in the darkness and that she could see him, and the whole, it was quite profound. I don't know if you have any sense about what that might have
She
been.
has the tools of her wellness within. And also there is somatic work that would be helpful.
Yes.
And that idea of just touching oneself, that's a good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
So we've discussed forms arising from empty space into the face of human unkindness and depravity. And how do we restore? Or do we need to restore our direct perception? When you hear the sounds of those who cry, you want to show remedies, sound antidotes. You want to hear, you called, you come to me, have you considered? And something that many of us work with is the person's birth path song. That seems to unravel. And each of you have well-developed minds and incredible skill sets for alleviating confused states and suffering. Each of you do your work in a unique way. And important to keep the heart awareness and the simple things of pacifying, purifying, energizing that which continues, that being that could not be destroyed, and do what needs doing. Yeah. In the pacifying process, there is importance of forgiveness. Often people who suffer, they blame themselves, especially children. So forgiving self and others for what might have been, could have been, should have been. And traditionally, in a nonverbal way, with drumming, so that one is taken. There's no chatter. It's just movement. Also, certain spiral motions, and these things you can talk to those who are studying and doing physical therapy practices. And no matter whatever the age we are, there's like a 7-year cycle where like the echo of something you worked on and brought to the place of light and understanding, like there's like the echo of it. And you offer that echo that others may not experience such unhappiness or disturbance, whatever it is. And why is there an echo? Because things unwind. Some would say, and it may be that with certain sound technologies, people in a flash, and then there is the knowledge that has no remnants, or the awake state that has no remnant, and then there is no echo. Yeah, I kept you all beyond your time again, eh? So we're looking at the practical applications of our spiritual understanding. Our direct perception is applied in everything we do. We create sacred space, pathways of understanding. I honor the motivation in each of you. And in my simple way, I wish to support it. That your gifts continue to flourish, and that you keep unraveling the question until you bring forth the method. That human family, we have healing that we can do and we're called to do. And also there seems to be something carrying us into a more aware state, like that the extraordinary lightning storm you described, and the knowledge of hyperdimensionalism and the influxes of new energy that come in. And so how are we receiving? How are we recognizing? By being aware in the moment and appreciative. Forgiveness, appreciation, generosity, considering that what we want for ourselves, also other beings want. And the issue of worthy or unworthy, the fact that we are here, that we are asking a question, walking, means we have a function, a gift, that we are part of the dance. And to withhold our energy creates stagnation. So change is flowing through our society, and some want to hold on to what is familiar, and others realize we are growing. I cannot wear the shoes I wore when I was 10 years old. Can you? Not. Maybe guys can, I don't know. Can you wear the same shoe you wore when you were 10 years old?
When I got older, my feet got bigger.
Uh-huh.
Spread out.
Noses, ears, and feet, and bottoms.
Yeah, keep growing. Yes, that's true.
It's the ever-expanding consciousness displayed in form.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Both of those those photographs that we took in California. People said, that doesn't look like you because my nose grew. It's longer. Yeah. So we're thankful for the gift of life and thankful for the opportunity to explore and to recognize the wisdom state as a seed within us, and also to consider what it means, a commitment to transform illusion and suffering. It is also about uh, creating the pathways that other people recognize their wellness. So let us continue and dedicate our activity to the awakening of wisdom, mind's potential in everyone and every situation. Where there are sounds of crying, may there arise sounds of joyful conversation. Where there are old people lonely, may friendship arrive. Where there are people hungry, may the gardens come forth abundantly. May the land that is dry be nourished with sweet moisture. Where there is the sound of war, may there arise the sounds of mediation and reconciliation. May the human family recall our unity. So I thank you each. We're going to have some powerful dreams tonight.
Yes.
Moon,
lightning.
Yes. Yeah. Were you able to sleep last night, any of you? Oh, good. You slept really well? Oh, good.
Yes.
How? Yeah. I was.
I keep getting right up to that temple of understanding, but I got, before I stopped at the cleft, I got a little farther last night.
Great.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
All
I got
right.
to the elders, I have wonderful time with the elders and the animals.
Well,
I'm trouble getting into that before.
well, thank you for offering the long life prayer.
Oh, thank you, Venerable.
I hear you.
Buddha memories of the secret Vajrayana in the Lotus Grove and teachings of practice lineage. You are the glory of the Buddha's teachings and the sentient beings. Blessed are the Vajrayana. May your life, Dhyani Ywahoo, ever remain firm and long.
Have a good night. We'll unplug a few things. Wow, this is supposed to be one.
Yeah, it transforms it.
That's why you always want to unplug it unless you're using it, because it just draws electricity.
Yeah. Well, we're sustained by a very sudden and wonderful flight.
Thank you for Grandma Honey's slideshow.
I think that Grandma needs to get a new computer.
Yeah.
Should we leave this up?
Yeah, because I need to see what else I can find.
Okay.
Yeah, what is the issue is changing computers, and this doesn't have Adobe. So those, or if it does, is not engaged. So those moving displays stop moving. Oh, no. See you in the light.
See you in the light.